December 21st, 1944, 3:47 p.m. Snow-covered forest near Hansfeld, Belgium, 6 miles behind German lines. Obersturmführer Karl-Heinz Werthmann sits in the commander's cupola of his Tiger Eye tank, watching through his periscope as 11 American soldiers stumble through the snow toward his position with their hands raised in surrender. They're exhausted. Their uniforms are caked with ice. Bloodstains show through torn fabric where shrapnel has found flesh. They move with the mechanical shuffle of men who have been retreating for 5 days straight, who haven't slept more than an hour at a time, who know they're now 6 miles behind German lines with zero chance of reaching American positions. Werthmann's thumb rests on the intercom button. One word to his gunner, and the 88mm cannon could end this situation in 3 seconds. 11 men. 1 high-explosive round. Problem solved. The offensive continues. Nobody asks questions. Except Werthmann can't give that order. Not after what he saw 4 days ago at Malmedy. The memory is burned into his brain. December 17th, 2:30 in the afternoon. His tank passing a field near Bogness. Bodies everywhere. American prisoners, at least 80 of them, lying in the snow where they fell. Execution wounds. Close range. Methodical. The SS officer supervising cleanup operations, casually ordering his men to finish off the wounded with pistol shots. Efficiency. The SS officer had said when Werthmann demanded to know what happened. Papers orders. Prisoners slow the advance. We eliminated them. Werthmann had climbed back into his tank that day, feeling something break inside him. Not just horror at the massacre, but recognition that he was operating in an army where murder had become policy, where the line between soldier and executioner had dissolved completely. Now, 4 days later, 11 more American prisoners are surrendering to his position. Now, 4 days later, 11 more American prisoners are surrendering to his position. And approximately 60 seconds from now, SS infantry following his tanks will arrive and expect him to either shoot these Americans himself or hand them over for execution. Neither option is acceptable. Werthmann makes his decision in the space between heartbeats. He keys the intercom to his crew. Weiss, position our tank to screen these Americans from the road. Mueller, traverse your gun away from them. I want the other panzer commanders to form a protective screen. These prisoners are going to division headquarters for interrogation. His gunner, Unteroffizier Franz Mueller, responds immediately with the question everyone is thinking. Sir, if the SS discovers we're protecting Americans instead of, I know what they'll do. Werthmann cuts him off. But I'm not murdering prisoners. Position the tanks. Now. The 4 Panzer IV tanks accompanying Werthmann's Tiger maneuver into formation, creating a moving screen that blocks line of sight from the approach road. The 11 Americans, confused but recognizing sanctuary when they see it, move quickly into the protection of the German tank formation. 40 seconds later, the SS infantry arrives. A platoon, maybe 30 men, advancing behind the tanks. The platoon leader, an Unterscharführer whose face Werthmann doesn't recognize and doesn't want to remember, approaches the Tiger. Obersturmführer, did you engage Americans in this area? Werthmann forces himself to sound casual, authoritative, like an officer whose decisions shouldn't be questioned by an NCO. Yes, 11 prisoners. I'm transporting them to division headquarters for interrogation. Intelligence wants information about American dispositions. The SS sergeant's eyes narrow with suspicion. Papers orders are to eliminate prisoners, not waste resources transporting them. I have written authorization from Division Intelligence. Werthmann lies smoothly. These prisoners have valuable information. Where they are? He gestures vaguely toward the tank formation. Technically true, since the Americans are hidden between his vehicles. The SS sergeant clearly wants to challenge this, wants to demand to see the authorization that doesn't exist, wants to inspect the prisoners himself. But Werthmann is an officer, and the sergeant is not, and challenging an officer's direct statement requires a level of certainty the sergeant doesn't have. Very well, Obersturmführer. But division headquarters is 15 kilometers from here. You're diverting from the advance route. I have my orders, you have yours, Werthmann says with finality. Dismissed. The SS platoon continues forward. Werthmann waits until they're 50 meters away before allowing himself to breathe. His hands are shaking. His crew is silent. They all understand what just happened. Their commander just committed treason that could get them all executed. and they're now complicit in that treason. Staff Sergeant Robert O'Brien of the 99th Infantry Division, standing between two German Panzer IVs with his 10 remaining men, didn't understand the German conversation but understood the tension. He watched a German tank commander lie to his own troops to protect American prisoners. The realization is so bizarre that O'Brien's first thought is that this must be a trick, some elaborate deception before execution. Then the German commander climbs down from his Tiger and approaches, hands visible, making no threatening moves. He speaks in heavily accented, broken English that sounds like it was learned from captured field manuals. "You, prisoners, I take you. Safe place. Pal." He struggles for words, then switches to German and makes writing gestures, trying to communicate proper processing, documentation, Geneva Convention treatment. O'Brien understands enough. This German is trying to save them from other Germans. The SS wants them dead. This Wehrmacht tank commander is going to try to get them to a legitimate POW facility. Why? O'Brien asks, the only question that matters. Worthman's English vocabulary fails him. He can't explain Malmedy, can't articulate the moral calculus that led to this decision, can't communicate that he's trying to save his own soul as much as their lives. So he settles for the simplest answer. SS bad. Murder. I soldier. Not murder. O'Brien nods slowly. In the universal language of men who have seen too much combat, the message is clear. This German has a line he won't cross, and that line is executing prisoners. "Thank you," O'Brien says. Worthman doesn't respond. He climbs back into his Tiger, keys the intercom to his driver. "Weiss, take us toward Bullingen. Slow speed. Keep the prisoners screened between our tanks. If anyone stops us, I'll handle it." What follows is 6 hours of the most intense stress Worthman has experienced in 5 years of war. Combat is straightforward. You see the enemy, you shoot, they shoot back, someone dies. This is different. This is navigating German-controlled territory while protecting enemy prisoners from his own side, fabricating authorization he doesn't have, lying to superior officers, and praying nobody looks too closely at the situation. At 4:15 p.m., they encounter a Wehrmacht checkpoint. Military police, regular army, not SS. This could be better or worse depending on whether these MPs are rule followers or practical soldiers willing to accept creative interpretations of regulations. Worthman approaches with confidence he doesn't feel. His loader, Oberstfreiter Hans Schultz, has spent the last 30 minutes creating a forged transport authorization using blank requisition forms and copying an officer's signature from a fuel authorization document they carry. The forgery is crude, but in the failing light and falling snow, it might work. Prisoners for interrogation at Bullingen. Worthman tells the MP, handing over the forged document with the steady hand of someone who has no doubt about his authority to transport these prisoners. The MP glances at the paper, glances at the Americans visible between the tanks, looks back at Worthman. For 3 seconds that feel like 3 hours, the MP's face shows calculation, deciding whether to approve this or investigate further. Then he waves them through. Proceed. Watch for American stragglers. We've had reports of infiltration attempts. Worthman collects his forged papers, returns to his tank, and allows himself exactly 5 seconds of relief before the next crisis arrives. At 5:30 p.m., still 2 hours from Bullingen, they encounter an SS company. Not a platoon this time, but a full company, maybe 120 men commanded by a Hauptsturmführer who outranks Worthman and has full authority to demand accounting of every prisoner, every requisition, every movement order. This is it. This is where the deception falls apart. SS captains don't accept vague explanations from Wehrmacht lieutenants. They demand documentation, verify authorizations, and execute officers who lie to them. Worthman approaches the SS captain knowing his next words will either save 11 lives or end 6. The captain speaks first. Obersturmführer, you're transporting prisoners? Where did you capture them? Near Hansfeld, Hauptsturmführer. Separated from their unit. Division intelligence requires interrogation about American dispositions. The SS captain's expression shifts to skepticism. He's studied maps. He knows geography. Hansfeld is 16 kilometers from division headquarters. You're traveling in the wrong direction. Worthman's mind races. The lie is collapsing. His route makes no sense to anyone with map knowledge. He's about to be exposed, arrested, executed along with his crew, while the 11 Americans are murdered anyway. Then Gefreiter Peter Lang, his radio operator, saves him. Lang climbs from the Tiger carrying a map case, approaches with a sharp salute, and speaks with the confident authority of someone reporting updated orders. "Sir, our orders were modified at 1,400 hours. Division headquarters relocated to Bulge due to American counterattacks. Our current route is correct per updated directives." It's a complete fabrication. Division headquarters hasn't relocated. But Lang delivers the lie with such conviction that the SS captain accepts it. Why wouldn't he? In the chaos of December 1944's offensive, headquarters relocate constantly, orders change hourly, and junior officers receive updates that senior officers haven't seen yet. "Very well," the SS captain says. "Proceed. Report to me after delivering the prisoners. I want confirmation of proper processing." "Yes, sir." Worthman lies one more time. The SS company continues its advance. Worthman's crew exchanges glances that communicate shared disbelief. They just lied to a senior SS officer and somehow survived. The Americans, hidden between the tanks and understanding nothing of the German conversations, recognize tension when they see it. Every German checkpoint means potential discovery, potential death. They're alive because a tank crew they were fighting against yesterday is now lying to their own officers to protect them. At 7 p.m., with darkness fully descended and snow falling heavily, Private Edward Morrison of O'Brien's group starts to understand what's happening. He's watched 3 separate encounters where German soldiers questioned their commander. He's seen the tension, the careful responses, the relief when checkpoints pass. He's realized these Germans are taking massive risks. Morrison speaks limited German, learned from grandparents who emigrated before World War I. He catches fragments of the checkpoint conversations, words like authorization and headquarters and intelligence. He understands that the tank commander is fabricating justifications, creating a paper trail that doesn't exist. During a brief halt for mechanical checks, Morrison approaches the Tiger tank. Worthman is standing outside, supervising repairs to a track link. Morrison speaks in his broken German. Thank you. You risk much." Worthman looks at him for a long moment. His exhausted face shows the strain of 6 hours maintaining perfect composure while committing treason. He responds in his broken English. "Malmedy. You know Malmedy?" Morrison knows Malmedy. Every American soldier in Belgium knows Malmedy. The massacre happened 4 days ago. Word spread through American units within hours, carried by the survivors who escaped. 84 Americans executed while prisoners. It transformed how American troops viewed German captivity, made surrender feel like a death sentence. "I know Malmedy," Morrison confirms. "That murder, not war. Murder." Worthman struggles with English vocabulary, settles for simpler phrasing. "I not do murder. You prisoners. Geneva, rules." Morrison understands. This German commander saw Malmedy's aftermath, was horrified by it, and decided he wouldn't participate in similar atrocities. These 11 Americans are alive because one German officer drew a line his conscience wouldn't let him cross. "Your men," Morrison gestures to the tank crew working on the track. "They know risk. They know," Worthman confirms. "They choose. Together." It's perhaps the most remarkable thing about this entire situation. Worthman's crew, Mueller, Schultz, Weiss, and Lang, all knew the risks of protecting American prisoners in December 1944's Germany. They knew Wehrmacht soldiers were being executed for defeatism, that protecting enemy prisoners could be construed as treason, that discovery meant firing squad. They chose to follow Worthman anyway. At 8:45 p.m., they encounter their most dangerous checkpoint yet. A full Wehrmacht security station, manned by military police whose entire job is verifying movement orders and catching unauthorized activities. The station commander is a major, outranking Worthman, with authority to arrest any officer engaged in suspicious activity. Worthman approaches with Schultz's forged authorization and a story he's refined through multiple tellings. "Major, I'm transporting 11 American prisoners to the POW collection point at Bulge. Division intelligence requires interrogation before standard processing." The major examines the forged document under lamplight. This is more scrutiny than it's received at previous checkpoints. Schultz's forgery is crude. The signature isn't perfect. The authorization format isn't quite standard. Under careful inspection, it will fail. The major looks up from the document. This authorization is dated today, but signed by Colonel Brandt. Colonel Brandt was killed 3 days ago near Malmedy. Worthman's heart stops. The forged signature is from a dead officer. They're caught. There's no talking their way out of this. He prepares for arrest, execution, failure. Then the major does something unexpected. He hands the document back. Colonel Brandt died serving Germany. His final authorizations should be honored. Proceed to Bulingen. Deliver your prisoners properly. The major knows the authorization is forged. He knows Brandt is dead. He's choosing to ignore it, to look the other way, to allow this unauthorized prisoner transport to continue. Why? Maybe he's tired of executions. Maybe he's disgusted by Malmedy. Maybe he's just a decent human being who recognizes what Worthman is trying to do. Worthman accepts the document back with a salute. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me, Obersturmführer. Just make sure those prisoners reach Bulingen alive. That's an order. Yes, sir. They continue toward Bulingen. Worthman returns to his tank feeling emotions he can't process. Relief. Gratitude. Recognition that he's not the only German officer who finds current policies unacceptable. The major at that checkpoint could have arrested him, could have executed the Americans, could have followed regulations and doctrine. Instead, he chose mercy. At 9:47 p.m., Worthman's tank formation rolls into Bulingen. The town has been converted into a German logistics hub, with a legitimate POW collection point staffed by regular Wehrmacht soldiers who actually follow Geneva Convention rules. These soldiers process prisoners properly, document their capture, and transport them to established POW camps in Germany, where they'll be held under conditions specified by international law. Worthman approaches the Wehrmacht lieutenant commanding the collection point. 11 American prisoners, captured near Hansfeld during the advance. They're yours. The lieutenant accepts them without question. POWs flow into collection points constantly during offensive operations. He issues Worthman a receipt documenting transfer of 11 American enlisted personnel captured December 21st. The Americans are led into the facility for processing. As they file past Worthman's tank, Staff Sergeant O'Brien stops and looks at the German commander who spent 6 hours protecting them. O'Brien raises his hand, not in military salute, but in a gesture of profound gratitude. Worthman nods acknowledgement. No words. What could either of them say that would capture this situation? They're enemies who spent an afternoon as reluctant allies, protecting each other from forces that should have been on the same side. O'Brien and his men disappear into the POW facility. They'll spend the next 4 months in German prison camps, subjected to inadequate food, cold, and the general miseries of captivity. But they'll survive. All 11 will live through the war, be liberated in April 1945, return to America, marry, have children, live full lives. They'll live because a 24-year-old German tank commander decided that murdering prisoners was unacceptable regardless of orders, regardless of risk, regardless of the fact that his superiors expected exactly that murder. Worthman returns to his tank. His crew sits in exhausted silence. They've committed treason, forged documents, lied to multiple superior officers, and somehow survived. Mueller, the gunner, finally speaks. Sir, what do we tell Paper if he asks about the prisoners? Worthman's answer is simple. We tell him they were delivered to the collection point at Bulingen for interrogation. That's what happened. We followed proper procedures. It's exactly what the SS officer told him at Malmedy. Proper procedures. Except this time, proper procedures meant protecting prisoners instead of murdering them. The Battle of the Bulge continues for another 5 weeks. Worthman's Tiger participates in the offensive's final desperate attempts to reach objectives that are already impossible. His tank survives until January 17th, when an American Sherman achieves a lucky shot that penetrates the Tiger's rear armor near St. Vith. The tank burns. Worthman and his crew escape, retreat on foot, and eventually surrender to American forces on January 22nd. During POW interrogation, American intelligence officers ask standard questions about German unit strength, equipment status, tactical doctrine. They don't ask about December 21st because they don't know it happened. The 11 Americans Worthman saved were processed through normal POW channels and eventually liberated. The circumstances of their capture weren't documented beyond routine paperwork. Worthman never mentions it during interrogation. Why would he? Telling Americans that he protected their soldiers from SS murder squads sounds like an excuse, a claim designed to gain favorable treatment, a story that can't be verified. He remains silent, serves 18 months in POW camps, and is repatriated to Germany in 1946. He returns to a destroyed country, trying to rebuild from total defeat. Finding employment is difficult for former Wehrmacht officers, especially those who served with SS-attached units. Worthman eventually finds work as a mechanic, marries, settles in Munich, and spends 3 decades not talking about the war. His wife knows he was a tank commander. His children, born in the 1950s, know their father fought in the Wehrmacht. But Worthman never discusses December 21st, 1944, never mentions the 11 Americans, never seeks recognition for moral courage that could have gotten him executed. The Americans he saved scatter across the United States after the war. Robert O'Brien becomes a police officer in Boston. Edward Morrison returns to Ohio. The others settle in New York, California, Texas, building normal lives, occasionally remembering the German tank commander who protected them, but having no way to find him. They don't know his name. They don't have photographs. They only remember a young officer who spoke broken English and risked everything to protect prisoners. In 1978, 34 years after December 21st, Robert O'Brien attends a Battle of the Bulge Veterans reunion in Washington, D.C. During a panel discussion about POW experiences, he tells the story of the German tank commander who protected 11 Americans from SS execution squads. He provides fragmentary details: date, location, a Tiger tank, transport to Bullingen, hoping someone might know who the German was. In the audience sits Dr. James Feldman, a military historian researching German tank operations during the Bulge. After the panel, Feldman approaches O'Brien and asks for every detail he can remember: dates, locations, unit markings, anything that might help identify the German commander. Feldman spends 2 years researching. He examines German military records, interviews former Wehrmacht officers, cross-references unit positions with American after-action reports. In 1980, he identifies Karl-Heinz Worthman as the probable German commander who protected American prisoners on December 21, 1944. Feldman contacts Worthman through German veterans organizations. Worthman, now 60 years old, initially refuses to discuss the incident. He spent 36 years not talking about the war. Why start now? But Feldman persists. He explains that Robert O'Brien wants to meet him, wants to say thank you, wants to acknowledge what Worthman did. Eventually, Worthman agrees. In June 1981, 37 years after December 21, 1944, Robert O'Brien and Karl-Heinz Worthman meet in a Munich restaurant. 2 elderly men who last saw each other in a Belgian forest during a snowstorm. Enemy soldiers who spent 6 hours protecting each other from forces that should have been allies. They recognize each other immediately despite decades of aging. O'Brien is white-haired, heavier, but still moves with military bearing. Worthman is smaller, diminished by age, but his eyes are unchanged, intelligent, careful, carrying memories he's carried alone for 37 years. They shake hands. O'Brien speaks first. "I've waited 37 years to say this properly. Thank you. You saved my life. You saved all of us." Worthman's English has improved with decades of practice. "I did what I had to do. Malmedy was murder. I would not participate in murder. So I protected you." They sit and talk for 3 hours. Worthman explains what happened from his perspective: the horror of discovering Malmedy's massacre, the decision to protect prisoners, the 6 hours of fabricating authorization while transporting them to safety. O'Brien describes the American experience: the fear of SS capture, the realization that a German was protecting them, the months in POW camps wondering if their rescuer survived. Franz Müller, Worthman's former gunner, traveled from Hamburg to attend. He and O'Brien shake hands, former enemies who briefly fought on the same side in a battle nobody officially recorded. "We all knew the risks," Müller tells O'Brien through a prisoners on December 21, 1944. Feldman contacts Worthman through German veterans organizations. Worthman, now 60 years old, initially refuses to discuss the incident. He spent 36 years not talking about the war. Why start now? But Feldman persists. He explains that Robert O'Brien wants to meet him, wants to say thank you, wants to acknowledge what Worthman did. Eventually, Worthman agrees. In June 1981, 37 years after December 21, 1944, Robert O'Brien and Karl-Heinz Worthman meet in a Munich restaurant. Two elderly men who last saw each other in a Belgian forest during a snowstorm. Enemy soldiers who spent 6 hours protecting each other from forces that should have been allies. They recognize each other immediately despite decades of aging. O'Brien is white-haired, heavier, but still moves with military bearing. Worthman is smaller, diminished by age, but his eyes are unchanged, intelligent, careful, carrying memories he's carried alone for 37 years. They shake hands. O'Brien speaks first. I've waited 37 years to say this properly. Thank you. You saved my life. You saved all of us. Worthman's English has improved with decades of practice. I did what I had to do. Malmedy was murder. I would not participate in murder. So I protected you. They sit and talk for 3 hours. Worthman explains what happened from his perspective, the horror of discovering Malmedy's massacre, the decision to protect prisoners, the 6 hours of fabricating authorization while transporting them to safety. O'Brien describes the American experience, the fear of SS capture, the realization that a German was protecting them, the months in POW camps wondering if their rescuer survived. Franz Müller, Worthman's former gunner, traveled from Hamburg to attend. He and O'Brien shake hands, former enemies who briefly fought on the same side in a battle nobody officially recorded. We all knew the risks, Müller tells O'Brien through a translator. Karl-Heinz gave us the choice to transfer to another crew if we didn't want to participate in protecting prisoners. None of us transferred. We'd been together since Normandy. We trusted him. More than that, we agreed with him. What the SS did at Malmedy, that wasn't war. That was evil. We chose to be soldiers, not executioners. O'Brien asks the question that's haunted him for decades. Why didn't you tell anyone? You could have used this during interrogation, during post-war investigations. Worthman shrugs. Who would believe it? A German protecting Americans from other Germans? It sounds like propaganda, a story told to gain favorable treatment. Better to say nothing. But you saved our lives. I saved my conscience, Worthman corrects. I saw what happened at Malmedy. 84 men murdered while prisoners. I could not, would not, become part of that. So when I encountered you, I made a different choice. That choice saved your lives. But mostly, it saved my soul. O'Brien understands. Worthman didn't protect American prisoners to be heroic or to earn post-war recognition. He protected them because the alternative, participating in atrocities, becoming a murderer, was unacceptable to his conscience. The decision was about maintaining his own humanity in circumstances designed to destroy it. You risked everything, O'Brien says. What was the alternative? Worthman responds, follow orders to commit murder? Live the rest of my life knowing I executed prisoners? That's not risk, that's moral cowardice disguised as duty. The real risk would have been becoming the kind of person who could murder 11 men and justify it with orders. They spend 3 hours together, two old men who were briefly enemies and briefly allies, united by a moment in December 1944 when one chose conscience over compliance and the other survived because of that choice. Before parting, O'Brien gives Worthman a photograph. It shows O'Brien's extended family. For children, 9 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren. 43 people gathered for a family reunion in 1980. All of these people exist because you made one decision in 1944, O'Brien says. My children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, they're alive because you chose conscience over orders. That's your legacy. Worthman looks at the photograph for a long time. 43 people. Multiply that by 11. The other Americans he saved also married, had children, created families. Hundreds of people exist because he spent 6 hours protecting prisoners on December 21, 1944. I did what was necessary, Worthman says quietly. Nothing more. You did what was right when wrong was easier and safer, O'Brien corrects. That's everything. Karl-Heinz Worthman died in 1997 at age 77. His obituary mentioned his Wehrmacht service briefly, noting he commanded a Tiger tank during World War II. It didn't mention December 21, 1944. Robert O'Brien died in 2003 at age 82. His obituary mentioned his police career, his family, his military service during the Battle of the Bulge. It included one line. He credited his survival to the courage of a German tank commander who chose conscience over orders. Of the 11 Americans Worthman saved, 8 survived to the year 2000. They all told the story to their families, creating a legend about the German who protected Americans from SS murder squads. Their children told their children. The story spread through family trees. As of 2024, 80 years after December 21st, 1944, those 11 Americans have produced an estimated 400-plus descendants. 400 people who exist because one German tank commander decided that murdering prisoners was unacceptable regardless of orders, regardless of risk, regardless of the fact that doing the right thing could get him executed. Military historians who study Worthman's story note that he was not unique. Wehrmacht records suggest other German officers protected prisoners from SS execution squads during the Battle of the Bulge, though most incidents went unreported. The chaos of December 1944 created situations where individual officers made moral choices independent of command structure. What makes Worthman's story remarkable isn't that he protected prisoners. It's that protecting prisoners required courage in Germany's December 1944, when SS execution squads operated with command approval and Wehrmacht officers who objected risked court-martial and execution as traitors. Worthman risked everything to protect 11 men he'd been fighting against for years. He didn't protect them because they were innocent. They were enemy combatants who would have killed him in different circumstances. He protected them because murdering prisoners is wrong regardless of military advantage, strategic necessity, or orders from superiors. That choice, to risk execution for a principle rather than accept convenient atrocity, defines moral courage. It separates soldiers from murderers, military action from war crimes, discipline from blind obedience. The lesson of December 21st, 1944 isn't about nations or armies or strategies. It's about one man deciding that conscience matters more than compliance, that humanity transcends uniform, and that sometimes the most courageous act is refusing to participate in evil regardless of cost. Karl-Heinz Worthman saved 11 lives by protecting them not from enemy fire, but from his own side's murder squads. In doing so, he demonstrated that even in the worst wars, individual humans can choose decency, that orders don't absolve conscience, and that the greatest courage is sometimes the courage to say no when everyone around you says yes. December 21st, 1944. One German tank commander, 11 American soldiers, 6 hours of lies, forgery, and risk. 400 descendants who exist because conscience trumped orders. That's the story. That's the legacy. That's why one moment in a Belgian forest during a snowstorm matters more than tactical footnotes or strategic assessments. Because Karl-Heinz Worthman proved that even when everything demands you become something less than human, individual choice remains. And sometimes, one person choosing right over wrong creates ripples that extend across generations, proving that conscience matters, that humanity survives even in hell, and that the most important battles are sometimes fought not against enemies, but against the darkness within our own ranks. One tank commander, one decision, for 100 lives that exist because he refused to murder prisoners. That's not a footnote in the Battle of the Bulge. That's a lesson about what it means to be human when the world has gone insane.